Is level 2 clear takeoff, left hand. Takeoff left, it is 3 points. Left land, swim west, copy. 3 points. Crossing 2-1. Crossing at 2-4 is runway.
Hello and welcome to the Blueskies Podcast. I'm PR Ganapathy, your host.
Just 70, Roger, report type southeast, connection, for the midway, and field selected.
It is my great pleasure today to interview Wing Commander PK Raveendran. Wing Commander Raveendran has had an extensive and rich career in the Indian Air Force as a engineer, flight engineer, as a flight test engineer, and then after that spent many years in the LCA or Tejas program. And so today we're going to have just a fantastic, rich discussion with him about his career, as well as about how a flight test engineer helps development of a new aircraft like the Tejas, and there's nobody better than him to speak about this. But first things first, welcome to the program, sir. Thank you so much for speaking to us today.
Thank you, Ganapati. It's my pleasure.
Wonderful, sir. Welcome. So, we start off this program by just trying to get to know our guests, and so I just love to hear where you grew up and what was your initial journey to join the Air Force like.
All right. So, where do I start? Uh, yeah, I'm from a middle class family in a small town, Vadagara, in Calicut district, Kerala. A fairly big family with 2 brothers and 4 sisters. And being the youngest of the lot, I was a bit pampered, I thought. My education, I went to local schools in Malayalam medium, SGMSB, which was the senior school, and BEM High School, Vadagara to be specific. Yeah. Then I switched to English medium only in pre-degree, that is +2, at the government college near Vadagara, government Madapalli College, it's called. Okay. Then shall I move on to my engineering thing? Yes. Then I got into NIT Calicut, that is REC, it was Regional Engineering College earlier, and graduated as a mechanical engineer from there. Then other branches, there were very few options available those days. Other branches were only electrical and civil. And admission to and REC NIT was open well ahead of we had altogether only 6 engineering colleges in the state. So admissions were open to REC NIT well ahead of the others. So with the result, it ended up admitting the best students in this because yeah. Then I was fairly good in studies, so getting admission wasn't really an issue. Okay, yeah.
And what triggered the interest in aviation, sir? I mean, did you have any family members? Did you see an aircraft and suddenly, realize that it was something that you wanted to do?
Yeah, probably yes. I had one family member, my immediate elder brother. He was in the Air Force. Actually, he was in the Air Force as that earlier there was a trade called WOM, wireless operator mechanic. So he was that. Then he got selected for flying. Unfortunately, he couldn't make it to his solo. Then he came out of service, and then that was the only person who was in the service. But actually, I think looking back, my interest in aviation probably started with aero modeling club in REC Calicut. The aero modeling club was started by one of my seniors. His name was Thomas Job, who too joined Air Force and retired as an Air Commodore. And then another founder member of the club was one Mr. C.V. Venugopalan, who joined HAL and played a very significant role in the design, development, and testing of the indigenous helicopter ALH. So I think that is where it all started. Okay, then another interesting thing which I remember about the uh, madness for aeroplanes is one day when we were on an excursion, from the college to Bombay, and we only get to see some aeroplane flying overhead. I never saw an aeroplane from close. So one day when we got a break, for off day. So I remember spending my complete day going and sitting in the Bombay airport and watching aeroplanes take off and land. I found it
Oh.
very, very fascinating.
And Vadakara, there was no airport nearby, is it?
No, 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 no. Particular, you see, there is the Calicut airport came much later. The nearest airport was where? I mean, even the Kannur airport also came later. The nearest airport was Kochi and Trivandrum. That's all. Yeah.
And so when you graduated from college, did you apply to join the Air Force? Or?
Yeah. See, when in 1970 I graduated. 1970 wasn't a good time for engineers passing out because of the precarious job situation. Okay. Accordingly, so some of us landed up in FACT Alway. FACT is Fertilizers and Chemicals Travancore Limited, availing some interim Government of India stipendary scheme, receiving a royal sum of rupees 250 a month. Okay, so yeah, and we had an interview also in a office called Shastri Bhavan that was in Chennai. Okay, so I remember, when on my return trip, I was in a train, and I was involved in a very major train accident. I mean, that
Wow,
was, yeah.
really?
Anyway, yeah.
What
Sorry.
happened? What happened in
What
that?
happened was, there were two trains supposed to leave in within a gap of say 5-10 minutes or something, and one going to to Trivandrum side, the other one going to Mangalore side. So I was in a Bangalore train that left first, and then what happened the moment it left the Chennai station, it developed some engine trouble, and it was sort of crawling and somehow reached Perambur station, and it broke down there. And I think these people could not communicate the trainees on the track, so the rear train came and rammed into this with full force. And it was in the night, and the compartment which I was sitting, it just got lifted up, and when it fell, the water tank and all broke, and water all over, and it was darkness, and it was chaos. Then anyway, I'll not go into the details, but I just wanted to say I almost lost my certificates in that. One guy was sort of cry. He was in pain, so there was another one soldier there. So we lifted him, and then we started walking towards the station. Then we found the enormity of the accident, and by then rescue operation, everything has started. People were there, so we sort of handed him over, and suddenly I realized that, oh my god, my bag containing my certificates and all. So I came back all the way. Luckily I got it. Otherwise I would have lost all my certificates. I just remember that was my first accident. I'm a bit accident prone.
Right, right.
Yeah. Yeah. So, then what happened was, soon enough I appeared for SSB in Mysore and got selected for Air Force and also for Hindustan Steel Plant. That. Yeah, but the joining letter for Air Force was taking time, so I reluctantly joined Hindustan Steel in Durgapur. So within about a month, I got the call letter. Without even telling anybody, I just packed up and left from there and came to AFTC Bangalore to join.
AFTC, okay.
Yeah, AFTC joined the 51 DEO, that is Direct Entry Officers, in the Technical Engineering branch. That was in July 1971. Okay. I clearly remember taking a pay cut of about 100 rupees in the process because my pay in Hindustan Steel, this thing was about 850 rupees, and my pay started, in the Air Force it was 750. So I took this 100 rupees, which is a big money then.
Right, right.
Anyway,
Yeah. So
okay. So
still
yeah,
driven by the passion for aircraft and
absolutely,
aviation.
absolutely.
So what was the training like, and what were the various streams that were open to
Yeah,
you at that
the
time?
training, ab initio training, those days we had a 4 branch system. Now we have AEM AEL. When I joined, we had a 4 branch system. It was technical engineering and 3 specialist branches. Where the specialist branches were tech elect, tech signal, and tech armament. Okay. And 51 DEO was the last of the old system, to be replaced later by the AEC, Aeronautical engineers course that is effectively was integrating tech engine, tech armament into AEM, and tech signal and electrical into AEL.
Right, right.
That kind of
And so for the public that doesn't know these terms, AEM is Aeronautical Engineer Mechanical, right?
engineering mechanical. Within that
Aha.
mechanical, AEL is aeronautical engineering electronics.
Electronics. Okay, understood. Great. And so how long was that course?
That course was 2 years, if I
Two
remember.
years.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah. That's
And
a long time.
so this was after 4 years of engineering, you did 2 years of this training and you get your
Yeah, that's
commission
right.
at the end of the course, or
No,
were
no,
you
no, no, no.
commissioned at the
See,
beginning?
we were direct entry officers, you see, and we are commissioned officers with candidate at the time of passing out. And then we remained as pilot officers under training during the course. Okay. So I did fairly well and passed out on the 17th of November 1972 with a CAS medal as a co-stopper in my stream.
Oh,
Yeah.
fantastic. Wow. Amazing. Where was your first posting and how were you trained on or allocated to a specific type of aircraft, or how
No,
how
no,
did
no.
it
It was a general kind of an exposure to prepare us for technical officers. The basic function of technical officers aircraft maintenance. So maintenance was the that was the focus of the training basically, and to convert a civilian into a soldier. That's the other part. Okay. So my first posting was to 106 SRS. SRS is a Strategic Reconnaissance Squadron
Right,
that
right, right,
that
right.
was located in Agra.
Uh-huh.
The role was reconnaissance. That means just go across the border for reconnaissance and survey task. We were also doing survey task for the survey of India, and we had a flight of Canberras and Dakotas those days.
Right, right. We've spoken to Wing Commander Joseph Thomas, who flew the Canberra in that squadron earlier, and later as pilot, he must have served with you, I'm sure.
No, no, no. He was there with me. We never worked together, but I was aware of this thing, and later he did this test pilots course and all that. Yeah, but 106, I was there in 70s, early 70s, so he wasn't there at that time. Yeah.
And so you were doing various maintenance activities on the aircraft in that squadron, I presume, then.
Yeah, see, the thrust and the focus was on Canberra aeroplane. With the result, Canberra aircraft serviceability was fairly high, and I still remember only one out of three Dakotas was serviceable. And then new pilot officer was come, so he said, "Okay, look after these aeroplanes." And I remember, taking some very unorthodox method of getting the aeroplanes online. I got into trouble with the maintenance hierarchy for that. Anyway,
Right. Okay.
so I remember one incident. You see, there is something called a RC relay. That is a reverse current relay, which is coming between generator and battery. That was on AOG. It was not available. So uh, I found that the packet we have some packet squadron across the runway. The packet RC relay was absolutely fitting there. Okay, so I picked up one from the thing. Then I took it to the lab, adjusted, because current rating is different. So I adjusted the thing and all that. I put it inside, okay, and started flying. So CNJO came to know that the aeroplane which was on AOG till yesterday, it started flying. He said, "What is happening?" So call that Pink Commander Raveendran, VP, pilot officer Raveendran. So when I told him that I put packet this thing, he almost killed me. So I adjusted all that and all that. But anyway, whatever I this thing. But RC relay we got in a week's time. RC relay came and
Interesting.
then we replaced it all that.
Very nice.
So
No,
these
it's
kind of
a
yeah.
you showed initiative, but I guess it wasn't appreciated at
No,
that
no,
time.
yeah, but then when he understood that it wasn't unsafe because as a pilot officer you can get away with procedures, I suppose, but not with the security, safety measures. Yeah.
And
Then
what were things like in Agra in those days? I'm sure there's a lot of activities, lot of different units, and
yeah, correct. Main this thing was this side was JBCU, Jet Bomber Conversion Unit, just across 106. Then across the runway we had three full squadrons of Fairchild packet C119G. Okay, and paratroopers training school PTS. It was tasked with the training army officers and jawans in parajumping and later skydiving. And it was open to Air Force personnel also. I took the opportunity and you know I went through that. It was a very tough course. did 5 jumps from the packet aeroplane and got my parawing there.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, jumping out of aeroplane, that was a very thrilling experience.
Right, right. What
So,
altitude were you jumping at?
it's about 1,500 feet
Oh my,
AGI.
that's not high at all.
That's not. I mean, that is. You see, it is a static line jump.
Static line.
Your
Okay.
yeah, his parachute is connected to the thing. So
Were
that
you
is.
adventurous by nature as a youth, or was this kind of interesting new stuff you did?
Yeah, I was not scared to try out new things. Yeah, I was. You can say adventurous, but then opportunity is what adventure you can do in a small town.
Right, right.
Yeah, but it was a very very. Yeah. Otherwise, I was. Yeah, I wasn't scared to try out.
Great. So what happened after that, sir?
Yeah, after that I switched to the switched to air crew. You know, uh, see the transport aeroplanes and helicopters. Depending upon the size, role, and country of origin, especially the Russian ones, Russian origin, had a multi-crew composition like pilot, co-pilot, navigator, flight engineer, flight signaler, flight gunner, and so on. Now, all these crews were inducted in a dedicated streams, through specific selection process and all that. But what was interesting, I found out, see, there was a provision for tech pilot. It used to be called Tech GD those days. Okay, you could join. There was a scheme available for Air Force technical personnel, and I was very keen on that. Unfortunately, by the time my chance came, I was told that it is no more available to you. So the next best option to get into a cockpit was becoming a flight engineer. So I opted for it.
Right. And so just explain for the sake of the audience, what is the difference between a flight engineer and the type of engineer you were already?
Yeah, as a flight engineer, you are a crew. Okay. Otherwise, as an engineer, you are a generic engineer. You can fit into any role. Okay. Now, as a flight engineer in the Air Force, your emphasis is not on maintenance. Your emphasis is on operation. Okay, it's a operation of the aeroplane. And as a flight engineer, you are supposed to know the best about the aeroplane. Suppose something happens when the red light comes on, you will see everybody turning towards you.
Okay.
So basically, it is as a flight engineer, you are an operator. You're a part of the crew. That's right. And depending upon yeah.
So,
And
a lot of us today are used to, just a two pilot cockpit, but, obviously it was very different then. Can you just describe which aircraft were you a flight engineer on, and what was the cockpit like? What were the roles and responsibilities of the various personnel?
See the flight I was trained as a flight engineer on Fairchild Packet airplane. I told you, no. Okay, so that one it was a 5 member. This pilot, co-pilot, signaler, engineer, navigator. There were five this, and they did a very very spacious thing, very spacious cockpit. Okay, and that is where we are trained basically how to this. But after the training, I was posted to 118 helicopter unit, 118 HU. That is in Guwahati. That was operating Mi-8 helicopters. And that Mi-8 helicopters had only 3 member crew: pilot, co-pilot, and flight engineer. Flight engineer was sitting in the middle seat.
In the middle seat,
And
okay.
and the Russian origin aeroplane flight engineers got a lot of role to play. Basically, Mi-8 pilots can't even reach can't even shut down an engine. Only engineer can start and shut down the engine. The reach wise also. So it was like that. So it was a very very important. You feel very important. And even when pilots are being trained, the instructor, sort of, the CEO or flight commander, he'll tell me to shut down one engine because he can't reach.
Right, right, right.
So you see, you have a very safety critical role because if you shut off one engine, if it dumps other collective, then that's the end of it. So it is a very, depending upon the type of aeroplanes, the role is very very critical. Becomes very critical. Okay.
What was that experience like with 118 HU in Northeast?
Yeah, see, their role was basically air maintenance. Going and dropping the supplies and all on the front line for the soldiers. That was the main duty. Then they also used to do the communication duties for see, those days the northeastern states, there were 7 states. It had only one governor. So we used to do communication duty for him. We used to, we provide helicopter for him to cover all the 7 states and all that. Actually, we used to look forward to that because, whenever we go for that, we get accommodated in Raj Bhavan and taken care of
Wow.
very well. So it is like something which we used to enjoy. But otherwise, I could cover the entire Northeast while I was there. I don't think there is an helipad which I haven't landed there during my tenure there. And also, nearby foreign countries, sort of say, Nepal and all that. Yeah, Bhutan those days, yes, it was not with us. Yeah, so it was very, very interesting.
Visual before the evacuation. Just 70, Roger, report time southeast, connection, for the midway, and you selected.
After that, in 1977, what happened was I got attached to Com Squadron. Com Squadron is Air Headquarters Communication Squadron, which is a VIP squadron. They were operating Tu-124s and Avros there, those days. And being VIP communication duties, the crew were handpicked there. If you're doing fairly well, then you get picked up there. And I was attached pending posting there. In 1977.
So this is Prime Minister, Defense Minister, President, that level of people.
Yeah, correct. That's the time I was involved in that infamous Tu-124 crash, carrying Prime Minister Morarji Desai.
Right. Okay. Tell us about that in
Yeah,
details.
unfortunately, the Prime Minister and the entire entourage had a miraculous escape in that crash. But unfortunately, 5 cockpit crew members perished in that unfortunate accident. Okay,
Can you
so
describe the whole sortie from the beginning, sir?
okay.
I know you've written about it, and I'll share a link to that.
Yeah,
but
but
love to hear it from your own in your own
right.
words.
I'll tell it briefly because it's a long story. Okay. So, as under trainees, you fly, or, you can be in the actual, this thing, what do you call, actual, you can assume responsibility only when VIP is not there. When VIP is flying, then minimum category B personnel only can be in the cockpit, that kind of a thing. So we were, that particular sortie, we were supposed to drop Prime Minister Morarji Desai in Jorhat and return empty leg. That's the time I was supposed to be in the cockpit.
Okay.
And even otherwise, as a spare crew, I used to be normally sitting there because there's a jump seat. For some very peculiar circumstances and reasons, I was not in the cockpit at that particular day. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been sitting here and telling the story, because all the crew in the cockpit perished in that crash. Okay, so airplane, see, Tu-124 operations is like it goes like a clockwork, So everything was. So I think we took off from Delhi at 5:15 or something, and it gets very dark, northeast, So by that time we
And
came
the
over here
destination
because
was Guwahati?
Jorhat.
Jorhat. Okay.
Jorhat. Yeah, it has a very long this thing, and Tu-124 is a first generation jet, and the descent is a big decision. Once you descend, because fuel consumption goes up like anything, so you are sort of committed. After descent is big. Descent is a very big decision. Before descent, possibly you could have diverted to Guwahati or Tezpur or something. Anyway, so when we descended overhead, it was raining there, raining, and it was. Hardly any aid was available. The only one radio compass or something was available there on the airfield. But when we came and sighted the runway, we were very close, and then shifted to the right side of the runway. So there was no way we could have landed on that. So he decided to go around and make another approach. That itself was very, very unusual. I've never seen an aeroplane, going around with a VIP on board. So I was just trying to find out what the hell is happening. So when I suddenly saw the runway just under my this is vanishing under the fuselage. Then he attempted apparently something called a timed circuit, because they were timing out to position themselves for a second approach. Okay, and apparently when they are turning finals, they lost height, and when they were leveling out and turning for finals, They were at the treetop level.
Oh my.
And I still remember, apparently, because I didn't know, because I was not in the cockpit, it's only guess. ATC would have asked them to put on the landing light. When they put on the landing light, saw a bright light coming. I was sitting right at the back. Through the window, the flap slots, I could see bright undercarriage light coming out like that. And then I thought I'm seeing some branches or trees or something.
Oh
I
my.
just said, "Oh my God!" I just grabbed the seat into this thing, and then tadam, hit the ground.
Oh
And
my God.
what happened was, after the first go round, I did a big mistake of loosening my belt. So I got thrown forward, and then my left knee hit the front seat, and then I was in terrible pain. Anyway, after this aeroplane, luckily it landed on that some huge bamboo growth, so that cushioned the impact, sort of. But and when and when we sort of when the aeroplane is skidded for a distance and then came to a halt, right engine was fully there was a huge blaze from the right engine.
Wow.
And there's chaos all around. And then after some time, the right engine, that light also went off, and then we started there is a one sergeant was sitting behind, and you opened the rear door. So I started calling out people, come to the rear, come to the rear. Then we started helping people get out of the aeroplane. Then what happened was, when the last person, this is, and somebody handed out a torch to me. With the torch, I walked right up to the cockpit. Then I found that cockpit sort of, it's twisted and then dug up into the mud, kind of thing. So I
Oh my.
started calling out names. There was no response. I was thinking that all these guys are inside trapped. Then I was, I was very, disturbed. And then I came all the way back. They jumped out without realizing that left wing was missing. What had happened was, with the impact, the cockpit floor got ripped off, and all the crew, they were all lying outside, nobody was inside. And they were all scattered all around, I was told. Okay. Then in the meantime, somebody, the so crew and other passengers, in the passengers there was no casualty or something, only the crew members. And the people took Moraji and the other VIPs and all that to a nearby house. Then my concern was the crew, sort of, I thought that they're all trapped inside. Then I wanted to reach Air Force Station as early as possible. Then we went to a nearby village. Then he had a jonga. He tried to start it, and then it broke down. Then I went to another person. There was a school teacher there. He gave us a cycle. So I took, there's a couple, Upadhyaya with me. I took him behind me and then started pedaling, and then somehow reached the main road. Then we stopped a vehicle, and then that vehicle dropped us at the Air Force Station. Then I went to the guard room and told these guys to connect me to station commander. Then I told them that aircraft has crashed. Prime Minister is safe, but the crew's fate is now unknown. So immediately, one doctor came and then took me from there. And then I was with the doctor for some time, and then he sent me to the ward. It was quite late by then, and then I was hoping that and these people by then, the search and rescue team was ready. Actually, I wanted to go back, but then they wouldn't allow me. He said, "No, no, no, you'll have to go to the thing." Anyway, and through the night, we started getting the news that the body is coming, and then
Okay.
by morning, the count has reached five crew members, so there was no hope of any survivors. So that is how it was. And then there was a court of inquiry. This that.
So, for the audience who are not familiar with the incident, I think other than the 5 crew members, nobody else suffered any major injuries.
The Kandi Bhai Desai, that is Moraji Desai's son, he had arm either sprained or fractured or something. Fractured. Otherwise, there is no other. This Moraji also was absolutely, there is no scratch on him. Nothing. It's a miracle that other than this thing, it was like it was that fuselage was very, very sturdy, I suppose. I don't know.
And after that, you continued to serve in Com Squadron?
Yeah, after that, what happened was, within 3 months, because my knee was injured, so I was in plaster. Then within 3 months, I was, I got my category back and I was back in flying. And then I got posted there. Okay, and this particular crash site I visited after 40 years,
Uh-huh.
4 decades. I visited that place. 4th November 2017. I went to that site, and after that only I wrote that what is published in that Bharat Rakshak. So, so there I given everything in greater detail. So anybody wants to
I'll
see.
share that link with
Yeah, and I was awarded, gallantry award Shaurya Chakra for my rescue
right,
operations. Yeah.
right, yeah.
It was recommended by the Court of Inquiry.
What is different about operations in the com squadron compared to other squadrons that you saw, especially from the engineering maintenance perspectives?
We are under sharp focus of a lot of people there, because VIP handling, there are, like, you can't have any kind of a shortcut, any slip up, that kind of thing. And we all our, the flying program, etc., is well, decided well in advance. You get the thing, everything okay. So that was one. Other thing is, yeah, it is a VIP communication duty. Therefore, everything has to be of the highest standard. Okay, highest standard. Yeah. So that is how it is. And even maintenance, etc. Maintenance, cleanliness of the aeroplane, crew, sort of, qualifications, and you get the best people there. The best out of this thing. And then, and that was the first crash in the squadron. Otherwise, it had a unscathed sort of, safety record. Yeah, absolutely.
Visual to Foreigner Visualize. Just need 70, Roger, report time southeast, connection, for advise and field selected.
So after that, you became a flight test engineer, right?
Yeah, after that, in 1978 I got selected for, flight test engineer training in Apnea. So it was through a two-stage selection process, and they wanted one FT, that flight test engineer, and one FTIE, that is instrumentation engineer for fixed wing stream. And that's why I got selected. And then, the selection process also considered because you see, in Apnea the course medium of instruction is French. So, French language training was a key issue. Also, that was a proficiency in the language was also a key element in the selection criteria.
Okay.
But
And where did
yeah.
you learn French, or how did you learn French?
See, ideally we should have been attached to that Alliance Francaise or something, but these were early days, so those sanctions hadn't come. So they have found one wing commander from the education branch. He knew French, but then, like, he's a Indian teaching French, and this thing was very different. But then he did what he could, but then it was grossly inadequate. That was a big handicap for us. Okay, so we landed up, yeah, I landed up in Epner about 3 weeks ahead of the coast guard. That lead time, we could get some time to sort of catch up on our language and update this that note. So that was the thing. Otherwise, it was one of the toughest and the best course I've ever done in my life.
Right.
Okay,
So, sir, you're the first flight test engineer we're speaking to. We've spoken to a few test pilots before. So, I'd love for you to just explain to the audience what is the job of a flight test engineer. And you also mentioned FTIE. So, if you can also explain what's the difference between an FTE and a FTIE.
Yeah. Okay. The flight test is not a one-man job. What do you call it is done by a team. It's a teamwork. Okay. Flight test is done by a team of flight test engineer, test pilot, flight test instrumentation engineer, and in France they have also had a test mechanic. They call mechanicien navigant. Test mechanic. Test mechanic is something like a flight engineer. Okay, so if you modify an aeroplane, flight engineer will, who's qualified on that, he will keep a track of that modification on that. That is his role. So it is done by a team. So each team member had very very specific roles. Okay, As far as flight test engineer is concerned, I'll take the example of a prototype testing. Flight test engineer is a link between the flight test team and the designers. So we are an interface with them. Okay. So flight test engineers, their role is test planning, test schedule, test briefing, test conduct. They call conductor. They say is the term used by test conductor. The term used by French is, so we call it test director.
Test
Okay,
director.
yeah, you direct the test, and then analysis and test reporting. So these are the roles. Okay, so these team members, each one has got their specific roles, and then we have a common goal. So there is no conflict. So that's how flight test progresses.
So, is there a specific example you can take of something that you might need to test, and what would each one of these people then do in that, so that it can come
Yeah,
to life for the audience?
Yeah, I'll tell you. See, like if you let's take the case of LCA itself. See, the designers design an aeroplane to meet certain requirements, isn't it? So that requirement is normally available in the form of ASR, air staff requirements. So it will specify this aeroplane should be capable of these performance parameters, this, that, and all. And designers, make the aeroplane, and ultimately it has to be certified by the regulators, isn't it? So it is the duty of the designers to get it certified. All right. So how do you get it certified? Because you need to show proof of compliance to the regulator. Proof of compliance through documents. It should be so through documents. Okay, documents and hard data. So how do you get the hard data? You get data from the instrument. So data, flight test data comes. There is a qualitative data and quantitative data. Qualitative is pilot opinion, rating, this, that, and also falls in the qualitative, and the quantitative data comes from the flight test instrumentation. So instrumentation is a very, very important component of the flight, the whole flight testing.
Right. And the
Okay. So
instrumentation, this is in addition to the normal instruments that an aircraft would anyway have.
that's right. Instruments, yeah. Instrumentation means you color, extract parameters from the thing much more than what is displayed, etc. Okay, and in certain cases you are not even allowed. Like for example, LCA flight control system was, you are not supposed to touch or tap anything from there. So you have to, at times you have to put dedicated instrumentation, sensors and the chain separately for that. So instrumentation comprises of all of that, and then you will have a onboard recorder. Then a subset of that, it will be telemetered into the telemeter ground station, and from there it will be processed and given to the monitoring room for the test director and all the specialists to monitor. Okay.
So, yeah, for the audience who don't understand telemetered, it is transmitting real time that data to a
Yeah,
ground
absolutely.
station.
See, why telemetry is because, see, in telemetry there are two. See, one is there's a definite enhancement of safety by using telemetry. That's number one. Then the productivity of flighters goes up leaps and bounds if you have a telemetry system. So the things are available as the flight is happening. You have the data, and by the time aeroplane lands, these days, because of the signal processing capabilities and all, everything can be made ready by the time you land, and then you can have it, that kind of a thing. So it enhances safety as well as productivity.
Super. So, tell us something about the training at EPNA and what was that like?
Training at APNET, it is a general kind of this thing. I mean, you are not trained on any specific type of aeroplane or something. So there are only two streams. One is fixed wing, other one is rotary wing. Okay, so only that. I'm saying fixed wing, when you pass out from there, you should be able to take on any prototype testing of any fixed wing aeroplane. Therefore, we will have to cover all the aspects of that: performance, for flying qualities, uh, you know, basically performance, flying qualities, and then uh, and also the instrumentation part also. Like the classes are generally common, and then whatever classes the engineers attend, test pilots attend, everybody is attending the same classes there. But apart from specialization, of course, flight test instrumentation engineers by themselves, they like to go deeper into instrumentation, so they get some special emphasis on that. Okay. So, and What was very very interesting about Epner was we used to get fantastic instructors there. People have got solid experience. I still remember there was a guy called Molly Bear. He was in the. He's the one when he used to take us a propulsion class, and he used to give us the his experience of uh, integrating uh, engine on the Mirage. Everybody has had hands-on kind of a thing. Then yeah, so these kind of that is very very. That is what something very very special about that place. Like you get extremely good qualified and then experienced kind of guys. There was there was a person Claude Lele. Lele, he was, I think, he was with Airbus Industries. Okay, actually Claude Lele came to India also. He attended one of our fighter seminars here, so I was instrumental in getting him. So he was an engineer from Supero and all that, and then he was a flight test engineer, a test pilot. He was a aerobatic instructor. Okay, flown some 400 types,
Oh my
14,500 hours
God.
and 400 types of aeroplane. So
Wow.
solid guys used to get. And
Legends in the space.
absolute legends.
Oh, okay.
And yeah.
You also had a chance to interact with this legendary gentleman Klopstein, I think, when you.
Yeah, yeah, Klopstein. That was a very interesting thing, Like, yeah, I told you that I landed up there 3 weeks ahead of the thing, no. So there were a lot of audio recording of various lectures and all that, and I picked up one of the things. This was by Klopstein. It impressed me a lot, that his style is that. Also, and I started asking. Then they said, yeah, he's a bit of a maverick kind of a person, okay, and he couldn't get along with people and all that. So he had a lot of problems. I was told. So anyway, later he was sort of sidelined from there, and then later he was given an aeroplane, not 262, and he was attached to Supero to teach students and all that. Okay, so then one day during the course, I heard that we are getting that super this thing, not 262 with Klopstein is coming to Epner. Then that was a fantastic experience. This person, what he has done is he had developed a approach and landing aid. Okay, so you can sort of make an approach and landing in zero visibility conditions, that kind of a thing. So based on you are not dependent on anything outside,
So
and
this
then
is
later
doesn't need a ILS signal or anything of that sort.
nothing. So
And
he
this was
had
an era
a
much before GPS, so it's not.
much before GPS, yeah. So
What was it based
and
on?
it was based on basically energy. There is something called energy height principle. Energy height, what do you call velocity vector, energy and energy height and incidence. Incidence kind of basically based on that. And then later what happened was he also generated some synthetic runway which is also will be available on the head up. Okay, so you can. And we were each team was given one sortie each, with about half a dozen approaches. So what he had done is, the under trainee test pilot used to be sitting on the left hand side. He was sitting in the right. I was sitting in the flight engineer seat, and test pilot's windscreen is blanked off, and then uh, he has to follow the cues available of based on his system. And then as he comes to the sea, so Klopstein, he will give a call, throttle back and round off. So he'll touchdown.
So all the way to touchdown. Wow.
Every touchdown was plus minus 5 feet of the box.
My God.
So it was this, and then later he his system didn't get an acceptance within France itself, for various reasons, because of this thing. So that's a big story that I'm trying to write about it. You'll see. Yeah. So that's a real
So these are some
good
great
experience.
experiences that you had in Epner, and then you came back, but before that you wrote an interesting thesis, I was told, when you were at
Yeah.
Epner.
See,
Yeah.
that was as a flight engineer, we had to you had to submit a thesis, and thesis is very very important for flight engineer. It had a coefficient of 2.5. they call it. So, and see, it has to address a flight test problem. You'll have to provide a solution, and that solution you will have to verify in flight. That was the kind of thing. So I found out a problem, the real life issue I found out, because where one of the earlier exercises were a takeoff test on transport category aircraft, and there is a one parameter called second segment climb gradient. Second segment, you see, multi-engine aeroplane, you should be expecting an engine failure anytime, and you should factor into the operation, isn't it? And second segment is very critical for obstacle clearance, and there with one engine out, you will have to climb minimum 2.4% climb gradient you should get. Okay, that means if you don't get that, then you will have to shed some load, and then your performance is limited by that parameter. So okay, so we were taken to Bretigny, which is near Paris, to do this test, and then I found that I asked them why Bretigny. They said no, they have got a fabulous instrument there called Strada. It will give you gradient this thing. When I went there, I found, see, it is based on ground tracking. There's a ground tracking, laser tracking, and this particular 2.4% climb gradient requirement is aerodynamic gradient, meaning the gradient with respect to nil wind. No, but whereas that instrument gave you the gradient with respect to ground. Again, there is if there is wind correction, etc., it is a mess. Then I said, yeah, you see, you're asking for aerodynamic this thing. Why don't we try to look for parameters within the aeroplane so that we are not this thing? So when I put down the equations, I got a very, very simple kind of an algorithm, and then I decided on that. I went to my instructor. I said, this is what I want to do. And then there were some hardware realization issues and all that, and then all that. So it's a very interesting story, but it's a long story.
Right.
See, but towards the end of it, I was waiting for one particular component which it never came. Then he was forcing me to change my thesis. I said, no, I can't do this. You give me anyway. Finally, when the thing came, it was holidays, Christmas holidays. So there was nobody there. Everybody left. So I wanted to work because otherwise I can't finish. So they allowed me to work. One person will come early in the morning from the fire section, they go Pompeii, and take me, then put me inside the lab and lock up from outside, and then I used to work like that. During lunchtime, I had to give him a ring, so he'll come and take me. That had worked. I completed that thing, and it was very well appreciated. I still remember I had a instructor called Lafsheen. When I was doing this, he was my performance instructor. When I was doing this thesis, he was in the US doing a transport aircraft evaluation. So when he came back, he immediately asked me about this. He said, Ravi, I was hoping like hell that I had your instrument when I was doing my evaluation. that was a real,
pat on the back. Amazing.
So that was a real good work which I did. And here back in AST also, later we did a engine, what do you call, updated the engine on AN32.
Right,
so again, we will have to do the performance.
Ajit Apte had spoken about some of those
correct.
Yes,
so that time.
This algorithm was very useful, I'm sure.
There's Manoj Arora was involved with that. He told me, because at that time I was sitting in Tezpur, so he landed up there. He said, sir, your algorithm is running on my machine. So that was interesting.
Amazing. Now, sir, the FTEs in France also are pilots, I was told, but you weren't a pilot, right?
See, the thing is, FTEs in France, they need a FTE license. That system there is, they need an FTE license to operate. So FTE license had two twin requirements. You need to apply a diploma and also a minimum PPL, flying license. So the guys who don't have flying license already, because mostly the flying is a very, very common thing. There is a flying club every small thing. So people are exposed to that. So if you don't have a PPL, then these FTEs, weekends and all, they go fly there and then they take up the PPL also, so that by the time they pass out, they're ready to get their license. That kind of.
They're doing this
So-
privately, so they're paying for that themselves.
Yeah,
Is it?
correct.
Okay.
A lot of civilians are there. So it is
right.
a mix of civilians as well as Air Force guys.
Did you also get a private pilot's license or a
No,
pilot's
no, I
license?
didn't. I didn't. I did it much later.
Oh, okay.
I came back. I came back. I did my license much later. Okay.
Where did you do it?
I did it in Jakur
Oh, wow.
because
Okay.
I joined Jakur Flying School while I was doing my masters in Institute of Science.
Oh,
So I did
fascinating.
my
Okay.
okay. So I joined this thing. Weekends I used to do flying there, and yeah, my masters program. This thing, program was on that AW Rotterdam airplane. I don't know if you
Yes, of
remember.
course.
One
Yes,
aircraft.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
The
So
Avro
that
had.
was yeah, Avro had this thing. So my master's was in aerodynamics. Then when I was looking for a project, I found this Avro model lying there. So my guide was a person, Professor GNV Rao. So I asked him, what is he doing? He said, no, it's a very top secret project, Air Force and all that. But Wing Commander Ramchand, he was in CAPS. He's in charge. So I had to ask him. So he contacted Ramchand. He said, I'm looking for a student like you. So he
Right.
gave it to me, and then I did the project there. So, and then after my ME project, I joined Dr. Ramchand in that AEW program.
So we're going to come to that, but just I'm curious when you became a pilot, flew. What were some things that you learned that, as an engineer, you had not appreciated because you were not a pilot? That you learned new, because you're one of those unique people who understands both sides.
See, the thing is, once you can land an aeroplane, you can speak their language, understand, and you understand their problems also. Like your communication, this thing is much better. It's a totally different. So it gives you a better horizon. You understand other person's perspective much better. And since flight test is a teamwork, and it really helps. I really found, with the moment I started flying, and this, I was a different, my perspective was very different.
Now, sir, before you did your masters, you were doing some interesting work on that overwing station of the Jaguar. Can you tell us something about that?
Yeah, right. See, that was one of the first project which I did. Those days when I reported to STE, the number of flight test engineers are very limited, and there are a lot of multitasking going on. So I used to teach in the test pilot school, and then take some projects in the this thing also. And overwing missile project was something which I handled. One of the first projects which I handled.
So just explain the requirement. What was the requirement? And
We had this Matra missile. If it is to be integrated on this, there are various aspects to be covered in the flight testing. One is handling. See, with this thing installed on a this thing, how does the aeroplane handle? Okay. Then particularly the high angle of attack. The Jaguar has got very limited angle of attack range, and it had uh, very sort of not very pleasant kind of high angle of attack characteristics and all that. How it does it get aggravated? But we found that the moment you put it was on the overwing top, it was like a much bigger boundary layer fence, and the thing was that the moment you put this missile there, and your high angle of attack handling characteristic was much better. Then there was a joke that all Jaguar should be modified with this.
wow.
So,
Okay.
so one is the handling this aspect of it. Other one is then you will have to get the data for they call it quantitative data of the derivatives, etc. Okay. Then if there is any overall the aerodynamic characteristics gets changed, isn't it?
Right.
So you will have to re-estimate that, and there was one BA person also attached to ST those days. So we were working in close cooperation with them. Okay, and then of course firing and clearing.
So tell us about the HS748, that radome for the. Was it supposed to be like an AWACS, that system?
Yeah, it was supposed to be the AVAX. Yeah, it was actually it started off with one report generated by LRD. LRD said we have a radar and we need a platform.
And for the
So that
audience
is
who
a
don't know what is LRD, can you just tell us?
LRD is electronics and radar development establishment. Okay, so that is a DRDO organization, uh, basically tasked to develop, radars, airborne as well as ground radars. Okay, so that's the time I think Dr. Ramchandra was called upon. She said, "Okay, give them a platform." Then he ran around and then found out Avro details, etc. And then that's how the whole thing started. Then, unfortunately, it ended up in a crash.
Yes.
Because of structural failure. So, yeah. So that when one flight, the rotordome came off
Okay.
because
Wow.
of actually, the rotordome was kept parallel to the fuselage earlier. Okay, then they were given an editorial requirement. No, when it is flying 3-degree nose up, then it should be parallel. So they put a wedge kind of a thing at the back, and that was on under design, and that failed. It's a very unfortunate accident, so which killed some people and all that. So that particular configuration was scrapped. Like rotordome configuration, because it never carried a live radar antenna in that. So then later they switched to a different configuration on this thing. So it was a sort of it wasn't a success from that point of view because of unfortunate crash.
Now, when you heard of the crash, given that you had been involved with developing this as part of your thesis and a lot of the initial design, what was the feelings that went through when you heard about this
Yeah,
crash?
I was not here when I heard about this. I was in Tezpur or Tezpur or God, yeah, Tezpur. Yeah, I was in Tezpur at that particular point in time. I, I you feel really bad that you put in your thing and then it had ended up in this kind of a situation. But more importantly, more than that, I lost some very close friends in that.
Right.
Some scientists as well as one squad leader.
Mm.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that is life as far as a test cruise.
Wonderful. So you've spent so much of time. I want to thank you for your service. I want to thank you for the time you've taken today to answer all my questions so patiently and so clearly. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
This is visual studio before the visualize. Just 70, Roger, report time southeast, connection, for midway, and field selected.
Well, folks, that's all we have time for this week. Join us again next week. In the meantime, sign up for updates at blueskiespodcast.com. There you'll find links to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You can also write to us with your comments, questions, suggestions, and feedback from the website or to blueskies@prganapati.com. Subscribe to the podcast on any podcasting platform such as Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and even on YouTube. If you like what you heard, share it with your friends, give us a rating in your favorite podcasting app, and write us a review. It will help other people find us. I want to give my thanks to Saurav Chordia for our logo and Prithvik for the music. I want to reiterate that all the views expressed here are personal, and this podcast has not been approved by or reviewed by the Air Force, Ministry of Defense, or any branch of the government. In the meantime, stay safe and Jai Hind.